Okay, this is Jimmy Jive, and you're listening to Motor City Rock Talk. Today, my guest is the legendary drummer from bands you may have heard of, Heresy, for one, most notably, obviously, Seduce. He's also a guitar player that's played with Speedball. I think his newest project is it Highborn? Highborn, yeah. Really good stuff. I've been a fan of Seduce forever, seen him a million times and all that, and never missed a show. Anyway, what I wanted to start out with was, how did you get into Seduce? How did you start? How did you get to that group?
It's a long story. I met Mickey St. Clair when I think I just graduated high school, and I was auditioning for a band he was playing drums in, and I was playing guitar, and the band was Mirror Child. Mark Fennell wasn't in the band yet, because it was, I can't remember who the other dudes were, but Mickey was the drummer, and that's where I met him, and me and Mickey got to be good friends, and then I met Mark and David. Mark and David were in Sparks.
Sparks,
they were a cover band.
Cover band,
you
yeah.
know, and Mickey was talking about him and, the guys getting together and putting a band together. But we all got, we were just like this. I'd go to every Sparks show. Me and Mickey hung out. I didn't really last too long in that band, just the band that Mickey was playing drums in. I forgot what had happened, but I just didn't get along with the other guitar player. I don't think I was up to his level at that point, anyway.
As a drummer?
No, I was playing guitar.
Oh, you're playing guitar.
That's why I met Mickey. I was playing guitar in the band. I've always played guitar.
So were you playing guitar before you were playing drums, or kind of both?
Yeah, I started playing drums when I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old. But
Wow.
I've always been into guitar players.
Right.
When I was a kid, I think it was in the 3rd grade, 4th grade, probably 68, 69, my mom got me a Pose and Play record player for Christmas with the Disney Jungle Book record, And my uncle, I had a hippie uncle, my hippie Uncle Dave, and Uncle Dave gave me Our Experience, and that was my, and anyways, I've always been into like Jimi Hendrix and guitar players and
right.
stuff like that, but I had a natural knack to play drums, so I just instantly started. My mom saw me beating on, so she would bought me a set of drums, and so I started playing drums. And I actually played in a bunch of people that she worked with. My mom worked at Ford. They had this band called the Moonlighters. It was a country western band.
Right.
That was like one of the first paying gigs I ever had.
No doubt.
14. Playing weddings, make $100 a night. Anyway.
That's pretty good at 14.
Yeah, but I'd always I'd screw around, with guitar. When I was jamming with guitar players, I would, fiddle around on their guitar and stuff. And I had an ear. I pick out stuff. Like I instantly started playing like Grand Funk and stuff like that. I could pick little things out here and there. I had an ear, blah blah. But then I thought I was a better drummer. And I was just way more into playing drums at the time. So that's when I met Mickey. I was playing guitar.
Right.
But I still was playing guitar, blah blah blah. And Mickey convinced me to start playing drums again.
Right. Wow.
Because Mickey was like, Mickey had a killer drum set.
Yeah.
We were at rehearsal one day, and I just sat down at his drums. I started playing a little bit, and Mickey was like, "Damn, dude, you should get back into playing drums." So Mickey encouraged me to get back into playing drums. So anyways, they had put Seduce together, and I was just I've seen every single Seduce show. Mark Fennell singing, Johnny Rocks,
right.
English dude. Every incarnation, and then they went to 3-piece, I can't speak for whatever happened, but Mick had a bit of a, there was some friction in the band.
Yeah, I understand
that. Some habits that weren't jiving with the other two dudes. And,
right.
And it got a little out of control. I didn't, I tried to stay off.
I know, I understand, sure.
I just worshiped the band. I just
thought
it was
the
greatest.
Right.
Mark and David were rock star. They had their They had their act together when I first met them. They had their look together, their tones, the way everything about them. They were Kobo ready.
Yes, absolutely.
And Mickey too. Mickey was just on fire, But there was friction with them dudes, and they asked me. They're like, if Mickey left, would you play drums for us? I was floored. I was like, oh my God, Mickey's my buddy,
right?
But
right.
I've got this opportunity to play with these dudes that I worship.
You can't pass that up.
Yeah, so it was, I had to take it, because they were like, look, we're going to get a drummer, regardless if you take the gig or not. So you can either take the gig, or we're going to get somebody else. And I was just like, so I took the gig.
No doubt.
And that's how I got it.
Well, let me mention something else that I've heard from several people and stuff. as far as that change, and I'm wondering what your thoughts were on this. The drumming style of Mickey being a real heavy, kind of like John Bonham style, and you coming in, a lot of, and it worked, I think, brilliantly as far as your recordings and all that stuff, was the fact that you seem to play a bit more aggressively as far as like, kind of like a punk style.
Well, I play a little bit more ahead. I'm a little bit more on top of the beat.
Right.
You know, Mickey's great, like that steady, right on the beat.
Right.
Mickey had more of that Buddy Rich.
Yes.
Mickey's amazing drummer.
Oh, I know. I
could never,
When I played with Mickey, I know,
Oh, yeah.
man, it was tough to hang with him on bass.
And he great drum tone.
Yes.
Knew how to hit his drums. I mean, I can never say a bad thing about Mick and his drumming and everything. It was hard replacing him. But I had my own thing,
Sure.
I was way more into, it's funny because back then, when I joined Seduce, that was like 83, 84.
Right.
That was like the English, the new wave of British metal
Correct,
just started.
Yes.
And actually the very first time I heard, I was at Mickey's house, and Mickey had a cassette tape that one of his friends from France had sent him. And this was, we were still listening to AC/DC,
Right.
Black Sabbath, and Uriah Heep, and
Right.
Mountain, and Rory Gallagher, and, that Motorhead and Metallica and all that, or Motorhead and Iron Maiden, and that hadn't got here yet.
Right.
And Mickey had this tape, a cassette tape, and it was Motorhead, Raven, Iron Maiden, Angel Witch, Diamond Head. It was, now that I realize it was singles, it was the 45s. This
Right.
guy had recorded the 45s and sent it to Mick. And when I heard like Raven, I was like, what is this? And
Yeah.
like Motorhead, Overkill, I was like, oh my God, what is this?
Yes.
This is what I'm talking about.
Yes,
I
yes.
never heard no shit like that before.
Yeah, yeah.
So there was a record store in Dearborn. Off the record. It was
Yep.
right on
I
Michigan
remember
Avenue
off the
across the
record.
street from Big Canyon.
Yeah.
And we used to go in there all the time and I'd buy new wave records, punk rock records, and that. And I'd always ask them, hey man, can you get records from Motorhead or Raven? And these dudes would look at me like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We don't ever hear these things.
Yes, exactly.
And I was reading the Sounds magazine one day, and I'm looking through the Sounds magazine. It was like at the very end, back of the magazine, there was an ad for the very first Kerrang magazine, and it had a picture of Lemmy on the cover. And I walked up to the cover, I'm like, this is what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
And so all of a sudden, they started importing those records over, and we were like right on top of all those bands. Because with me and Mark and David and Kenny and Steve and Michael, the crew and
Right.
all the people, we were just music. We just absorbed it like sponges, man. And Mark, it's funny because David was more into Bowie, Roxy Music, Blonde.
Really? David was into that?
Way more.
I would have thought more like Richie Blackmore.
He loved Richie Blackmore, loved Dearborn, loved Deep
Purple and
all that stuff. Yeah, he loved.
That
That's
really
what he grew up on.
Yeah, that's what really seemed
Michael
to stick out in
Schenker,
his style.
Deep Purple. If
Yeah.
you ask me, that David's Michael Schenker meets
Exactly.
meets Michael Schenker meets Richie Blackmore.
Yeah.
There's David, and it would throw some Eddie Van Halen in there.
Yeah,
and
sure.
boom, and then so we were, we were all into that and stuff. But at the same time, there was like I was kind of watching like the evolution of metal.
Sure.
That was a good time to be alive, man. Because
Oh,
there was a
I
lot
know.
of stuff happening.
Yes.
And that was before like cell phones.
Oh, God.
Before the internet. So when you found these bands, you worshiped them.
Yes.
I remember the first time I went and seen Metallica in '84, and Kenny and Steve and Tom. And
That wasn't with Mustaine, was it? Was Mustaine?
no, Mustaine was.
He was
out
still
of
gone by that
It
point?
was like Kill 'Em All that just came out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was out for probably a couple of months, and I didn't even know who they were.
Right.
And my buddy Kenny, they went to Chicago the night before.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, we just went to Chicago. We seen this killer band. They're playing in Cleveland tonight.
Right.
Let's go. So we all jumped into Otto. I don't know if you know Otto. He owns the
Yes,
Shuffle.
I know Otto. I was
we
gonna
went-
talk to you
We all
about
jumped
it.
in Otto's Volkswagen, and we drove all the way to the Agora
Right.
in '84 in a snowstorm. And Richie rolled down one of the windows, and it broke the handle. So all the way there, the window was open.
You're
in the
freezing.
snowstorm. But we, toughed it out in this Volkswagen with no heat. Anyway, we walked in, and Metallica, we missed the opener, and Metallica was playing Fight Fire with Fire. when I walked in the door. I was just like, what the? Holy shit!
Well, that was on Ride the Lightning, so.
Yeah, they played 2 songs off of Ride the Lightning.
Before it came out, it was
yeah.
Wow.
It was the Kill 'Em All tour.
Right,
but
as
they were
I
like,
said.
this is a new one. You know,
Yes.
It was Ride the Lightning, and they played, what's that?
Creeping Death?
No, I can't remember.
Is that, what is that? I can't even pronounce it. That cuckoo or whatever.
It's one of the songs off.
Yeah.
Off of Ride the Lightning.
Right.
But anyway, so we good. I partied with Cliff. And we waited around after the show, and they all came out. And Cliff Burton,
man.
like Penny, my light man from Seduce, traded Cliff this Misfits Fiend Club shirt that Kenny was wearing.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I gotta have that shirt. So they swapped shirts and stuff, But those were the good times, man. I mean, we seen Slayer play at Blondie's. I traded Tom Araya because they didn't have any merch.
Yeah, I remember Blondie's.
Tom Araya was wearing his Show No Mercy shirt. I'm like, hey, bro, you got any merch? He's like, no, we didn't bring anything. I'm like, well, what about that shirt you're wearing? I go, I got a bag. I have some weed. I'm like, I traded some weed for it. So I traded Tom Araya a bag of weed for this shirt he was wearing. But they were like literally.
Good deal.
They literally pulled up in a Camaro. They were touring in a Camaro. The band was in a Camaro, and Tom's brother was in a Winnipeg or like a U-Haul truck with their gear. and actually, Kerry King blew his amp up and came to the Seduce house the next day.
Right.
And Todd worked on it for him. And so I was sitting there in the living room with Kerry King. And yeah, those were good times, man.
That sounds good.
But what I was trying to point out is I was listening to a lot more hardcore, like 84, 85. I was way more into
And I'm just saying, that kind of showed in your strumming style.
Yeah.
I'd always said that, because the band I was in, we tried to formulate ourselves kind of what I thought you were doing in a sense, but it was reversed. You had Mark that seemed like he was more mainstream rock.
Way more Alice Cooper.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
That was his thing.
David into like the Michael Schenker, obviously guitar guy and stuff, and you into more the punk thing, which created a whole different sound for Seduce.
A very, it was the musicianship, but there's still a boom, I mean, my drumming, I'm not the greatest drummer in the world. I'll never.
Don't.
I do what I do.
You do a great job, man.
I have
that
my own
band.
style,
Yes.
And I was, like I said, I was listening to, like when metal started to get 84, 85, 86, when like Poison and all that,
Yeah.
I was just kind of shying away. I was way more into Discharge,
Yes.
The Italian Saints, Crucifix, and a lot of the Finnish hardcore bands, Trevik Cadet, that kind of stuff. I just loved. I ate it up in the spoon,
Well, I know you also worked at Rock of Ages with Bob and stuff.
Yeah,
was Bob at that time trying to get into that kind of stuff?
Bob was just, Bob would sell whatever would make him money. That's what I
well,
love
that's
about
still
Bob.
that's still
That's
true.
what I love about Bob. He did whatever made him money, he would sell it.
But I mean, was he able to get you that stuff for you when you were working there now?
I mean, I actually, when I started working at Rock of Ages, that was after I was out of Seduce. That was after, we had a falling out.
Oh, that's right.
So I was working there afterwards, but it was funny because that was when grunge started to come around, and I got hit to that real quick. I got hit to like Sub Pop Records, and I joined the Sub Pop Club.
Right.
And I would get all the Sub Pop singles and stuff, and that was before it kind of hit. And then it was Ron, my buddy Ron, that plays bass in Negative Approach. He said to me one day, he's like, dude, you got to see this band. They're playing at, they're from Seattle. They're called Tad. They're playing at the Old Miami. So we went to see Tad, and I was just like, oh my God. I was
The
just
Old
all
Miami.
about it,
Oh, man.
Yeah, but like I said, when Seduce was actually going, I was way more. I never really listened to a lot of metal. The only really metal I listened to was I always like the first couple of records the band would put out because it always seemed like the rawest.
Yes, that's right.
And once they start to get to the third or fourth record, I was like, anyways, they start to repeat themselves, but I loved Kill 'Em All. I loved the first two Megadeth records.
Right.
It was, those are a few of those metal bands. And now metal to me is like, I love High on Fire. I think High on Fire to me, that's,
Do you think there are any true metal bands anymore? I mean, they're national acts.
There are, but I'm way more. I kind of lean a little bit more towards stoner rock. When I listen to that kind of stuff, heavier stoner rock, like Caius, Fu Manchu, Brant Bjork, that kind of stuff. I lean that way a little bit more. But honestly, the older I get, the more I listen to the shit I grew up listening to.
Well, that's cool.
I got a playlist, a Spotify playlist with Mountains and Faces.
Right,
And
right.
Sensation Alexari Band and
Yes.
Sparks and everything. Uriah Heep and
Did
Grand.
Sparks actually record?
Huh?
Did Sparks
Oh, no,
actually?
I mean, they're the Sparks of California.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
I was going to say.
I just, I grew up in the 70s. I'm
Oh,
only
so did I.
52 this year, so I'm really, I grew up in the 70s, so I revert back to what I grew up listening to.
We all do, man.
But it's funny because I feel like it's still as fresh now as it always has been. I mean, but to me, some of these newer bands that are trying to sound like older bands sound more dated
Yes.
than the bands that are actually from that period.
Yes, you're right.
And I'm just kind of like,
Seems
I don't know.
forced.
Why would I want to listen to a copy when I could just listen to the real thing?
Absolutely.
So I don't know.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, because you'd mentioned some of these groups that you were into and all that. How did Seduce, like when you were in there? I mean, because I know I've got bootleg stuff from the Mickey era and all that stuff of all the covers they were doing.
Yeah.
I think Love to Hate was about the only one that I remember
When
from
I
that
first
time.
joined Seduce, we were doing mostly covers.
Yeah.
2 sets a night.
How was that? How did you guys pick that? Was that a democratic thing? Did David pick them? Did Mark pick them? And
Yeah, we all
these guys
just
were
kinda,
doing Kiss. You were doing. I mean, I figured the Motorhead thing when you were doing Ace of Spades was more you, but you were doing the Monkey Stepping Stone,
yeah.
which was
So
like, which is such a killer version of it and stuff and all that, but would never expect anybody
Yeah, we
to do
did some
that.
weird covers. I mean, we did like Red Book. There was this band Paris. They're from
Paris,
the 70s.
yeah,
We
yeah.
used to do a couple Paris covers. I mean, we were like I said back then. We were real music connoisseurs, so we were always listening to weird stuff.
Yeah, but it seemed to work, man, because
Yeah,
they'd be at your
yeah.
shows and everybody reacted to it. And I think in a big way, you guys introduced a lot of that stuff to people that may never have heard it, which was really cool.
And that's a lot of the bands that I grew up on. Or bands that I seen when I was a kid. They did the same thing. They would do a cover, and I was like, oh, what is that? And I figured, oh, it's a cover.
Right.
And I'd go and discover that band, and we were, like I said, when we first started playing, you were doing 2 sets a night. And it was
Right.
We were, I'm not saying that Seduce was the first one or anything like that, but we were one of the very first bands to start bringing in openers. We would tell the bar owner, let us bring in another band.
Were you able to pick them then?
Yeah, we would pick an opening band and we'd bring in a band, and then we'll let us play one long set, and we'll let them play a set. And that's, the club owners started to get into, not that we started it, I'm not.
Right, no, I understand.
We did. We got to a point where we just didn't feel like playing 2 sets a night.
No,
We just
of
wanted
course
to play
not.
one long set.
Yeah, one good, strong set.
Short
Yeah,
set,
bam,
Not
bam.
a fucking top 40 back here. So we started bringing in openers and stuff like that. And then the bars just started bringing in openers. And, the rest was history. But when we first started playing with Seduce, we brought our own PA.
Yes,
A lot of
yes.
bars didn't even have a PA.
Yes,
We had a
yes,
PA
you had to. And you had to have your own sound man.
and a light man.
Yes, and
everything,
lights.
we were a full-on,
Yes.
when I first joined Seduce, we had a big silver school bus, that we would pile all the gear in, and that was our rolling dressing room and everything, man. We used to play, Silverbird, 24 karat.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Token.
I saw you all
Tracks.
those places. Seen you at the Token the most, obviously, but yeah, Silverbird.
I used to love playing tracks.
Tracks.
Go run
Yeah,
tracks,
I've got the bootleg from Tracks and all. Matter of fact, dude, I've got all your stuff on every format. 8-track,
yeah.
reel to reel.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I just
I
can't
like
get
to
enough
hear
of it.
something, but I don't really have too much of
You
that.
don't?
No, not really.
Oh my God! Yeah,
I've always tended to keep moving forward. I try not to go backwards.
no, of course not. You got to. Well, that's the thing that's really cool. You've evolved quite a bit.
Yeah, I tried
From
to.
Heresy
Yeah.
to Seduce to.
Well, once I left Seduce, I moved to L.A. And I moved in with some buddies out in L.A. and they were hooked up with Ricky Rackham, in the Cat House, and that
Right.
scene,
Jeez.
And when I got there in '89, it was like the very tail end of the hair metal scene. You could tell it was starting to go out, and it was a little bit the remnants of that Red Hot Chili Pepper
Yes.
wannabe bands too, 24/7 Spies and all that stuff. That's cool. But when I first got to LA, I was looking for a band, and I was hanging out with Kenny and Steve, or Kenny and Michael, and going to a Cat House and Bordello and all these
Right.
places. Man, that wasn't my scene at all. I'm just like, God, this.
Too much of a hair metal thing.
Yeah, it was like the remnants of the hair metal
Yeah.
people still, and I was just like, man, this is not, I was already into grunge, and grunge hadn't hit L.A. yet. And I
Right.
don't mean grunge like in the grunge. I mean like I was really into Bud Honey. You know, the first Nirvana record.
Right.
You know, because Nevermind wasn't even out yet. You know?
Right. Soundgarden probably.
Yeah, you know, first couple Soundgarden records was Tad. I love Tad. You know, but anyway, you know, I was like, man, this just, you know, I'm hating LA. You know, I auditioned for a couple of bands, and he's like, you know, dried up hair metal dudes. You know, I'm just like, man, this is cool. I don't know. You know, and it was I was there for about 6 months, and a buddy of mine, my buddy Eric from Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah.
5 Horse Johnson.
Okay.
He called me up. He's like, hey, man, I got some buddies out there that are looking for a drummer. They live in North Hollywood. Where are you at? I was like, I'm in North Hollywood. He's like, well, yeah, call my buddy Joe. He's looking for a drummer. You know, so I called Joe up. Turned out he lived 2 blocks away from me. You know, Joe was from Detroit. Joe
Right.
was from Ann Arbor. He played in a band called the Herb Tarlicks back in the day.
The Herb Tarlicks, I got them. I could
Yeah, the Herb Tarlicks.
party in your pants.
Yeah, exactly. And so I went over and met Joe, and they had this band called Mother. And actually, what's his name? Adam from Tool was one of the guitar players, and he was just leaving the band because he was going to go form something else. You know, and I met Joe and Kurt, the singer from Mother. We just took off. I mean, because those dudes were they were into everything that I was into, and they introduced me to a whole underbelly of Hollywood that I didn't know was there.
Right.
Like the Coconut Teaser and the Gaslight and Raji's and all these like underground clubs and Lingerie and all where those bands were starting to play.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I'm home. You know?
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, so I joined those guys and I played with them for a little while, and I had a riot, and we did great, man. We played around Hollywood and Long Beach. You know, we played all around the Southern California area. Put a couple records out. We had a production
Records,
deal.
actual records.
Yeah. We had a production deal with RCA, and then the bass player, you know, started doing heroin. So that just, you know,
that always ruins it.
Yeah, you know, so he was. I mean, the dude was beautiful. He looked like Chris Cornell. He looked like Chris.
Right.
Same kind of hair.
Right.
He was a model. You know, he's actually a model.
Wow.
But he started doing dope, and you know, he started getting real bad. So Joe kicked him out of the band. We got my buddy Chris Beebe. Chris Beebe was actually played with Tom Morello in a band called. I can't think of the name of the band.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of it off the top of my head either.
I can't think of the name of the band. Lockout or Lock Up or something like that. But anyways, Chris started playing with us, and you know, it just once you change members, you know, things just did
Chemistry, yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of felt. So actually, I was friends. My buddy Jimbo was Tracy Gunn's guitar tech, so he introduced me to Tracy from L.A. Guns. You know,
Yeah.
And me and Tracy got along great. You know,
Well, he was a remnant of the hair band.
Oh yeah, he's still in L.A. Guns. I mean, L.A. Guns. is still
They're coming to town.
Yeah, and so Tracy asked me if he wanted to put a solo band together. So I was like, yeah, man. So I started playing. I moved in with Tracy. I lived in North Hollywood for like a year with Tracy Guns.
Now, how were you surviving?
Huh?
How were you surviving financially? I mean,
my mom would send me money every once in a while. I had little jobs.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
I worked as a runner for propaganda films.
okay,
And I
so
was
you did have to. I was going to say, because trying to live off the rock thing is impossible, especially out there.
You gotta have income when you live
Yes.
in LA. You know?
Yeah,
There
for
is
sure.
there's the haves and the have-nots, and I didn't want to be the have-not. You know?
Right.
But you know, you have to have some sort of income. You know?
Did you play like the whiskey, those kind of
Oh
things?
yeah. We played. I played the whiskey with Tracy Guns and Troubadour. And but anyways, I worked for this company called Propaganda Films as a runner, and they did like the Madonna movie. They had a bunch of like B movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But their big thing was videos. They did like every major video you've seen in the early '90s, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Alice in Chains, all
Right.
that shit. It all came out of Propaganda. You know, they had another. It was I forgot the name of the division, but they did all the music videos. So I met a ton of people.
How did you get in there? How did you?
A buddy of mine, my buddy Scott, was a runner there. You know, he's like, hey Chuck, they're looking for a runner. You know,
Cool.
so all I did was drive around, L.A. You know, and deliver all day long. You know, I would go to every movie company and every single record company almost every day.
Wow.
I went to David Lynch's house. I used to go to Madonna's house. I used to drop off stuff.
Wow.
If they're doing a Madonna movie, I'd go drop off tapes, like dailies, because they would do, like they'd shoot for a day and then they'd want to see what they shot.
Right place, right time. And That had to help you as far as contacts.
Oh,
too.
yeah, I remember one time I went to, they sent me on a run to Culver City Studios, and this is a funny story. I pull up, and there's like these big, huge, the warehouses where they're shooting all the movies and stuff. And I mean, this film studio, this lot is huge, and they've got these, one street is like a street out of 20s New York, where
right.
they're filming and shit. I mean, this is like Hollywood, man. This is the real deal.
True Hollywood.
So I pull up to this warehouse where they're filming, and I get out, and I go up to the door, and the dude's like, "Oh, hang on a second, man. They're filming right now." He's a big security guard. He's like, "Hey, man, you dig Metallica?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, they're filming right next door." And sure as shit, a limo pulls up. They all get out. They were shooting some video right next door. So anyways, I hear him like, "Go send the runner in," So I go in this film studio in this big warehouse where there's like a house that they've got, and they've got all these lights on it, and they're filming something, And I walk in, and I'm super sunny in California. You walk into a dark room, your eyes gotta adjust. I hear this voice say to me, "Can I help you?" And I go, "I'm looking for Steve Golan. He was one of the directors. I gotta have him sign some checks." He's like, "Well, he's shooting right now." He's like, "He'll be done in a second. Are you hungry?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "But he's like, the craft service table is right over there." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "Go get something to eat." I go to the craft service table. My eyes are finally adjusted. I look. It was Michael Jackson. They were shooting a Michael Jackson video. Yeah. I'm like,
it wasn't with Eddie Van Halen, was it? It wasn't Beat It, right?
It was that video for the song called Black and White.
Right. Oh yeah.
And the very beginning of the movie or the video where Macaulay Culkin's jumping up and down on this bed, and George Wendt from Cheers opens up the door. "Will you stop that rocket?" I stood right there and watched them shoot that like 20 times over and over again. I had to wait till they were done.
You had some great memories of it. Oh, that's a great. That is a great story.
The 3 years I lived in L.A. was probably like 30. Because every day was an adventure.
Obviously, you didn't know what you were gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know who you're gonna run into.
Right.
I mean, I was sitting in propaganda, and that was the thing about working there. It was like every day a star was in there. Nicolas Cage come walking in the door one day, and he looks at me. He's like, "Hey, where's the front desk?" I'm like, "It's right there."
Right in front of you.
Yeah, it's like right in front of you, bro. And he's like, "What time is it?" And I'm like, "Well, it's about 10 o'clock." He goes, "Whoa, all the clocks stopped working in my house, so I'm due for a meeting here at 11. I'm like, "Well, you got about an hour, bro." Hey, Cheech Marin come walking through there one day. Prince come walking in the door one day with the Booyah Tribe. This is his bodyguards. They were shooting the film.
Yeah.
I was sitting in the lobby one day, and this dude sits down next to me. I'm waiting for my next run. I'm reading the L.A. Weekly, and I look over and I see a Rat Fink tattoo on this dude's arm.
All right.
And I go, "Hey man, nice tattoo." And it's Brian Setzer. They were shooting those videos with the rockabilly graphic.
Yeah.
Propaganda did those.
Wow. Was that Stray Cats or was that his solo stuff by that time?
No, I think that was his Setzer Orchestra.
Right.
I was sitting there, the receptionist, her boyfriend was, what's his name, the singer from the Cult.
Asbury.
Yeah.
Ian Asbury.
Ian Asbury. So he used to come in there all the time, And I was like, I knew they were looking for a drummer. So one day I was like, "Hey, Ian, how you doing?" Because the receptionist and my girlfriend at the time were good friends. So I went horseback riding one time with Ian Asbury.
Oh my God.
But anyways, I told him, I said, "Man, I go here to play drums, man. You're looking for a drummer." And so I took him out in my little jitty 1980 Ford Fiesta with my Pioneer Super Tuner. And I played him like a couple of other songs, He's like, "Oh, it's good, mate. It's good, mate." I didn't get the gig, obviously, But yeah, man, living in LA that was good times, man. I met a ton
Speaking of which, you'd mentioned earlier and stuff. You had left Seduce, and obviously you worked your way back into Seduce. What I was going to ask you about, as far as LA and all that, you guys were in the movie Climb the Western Civilization, the middle years.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
That was from we were signed to IRS Records. Yeah, and IRS did that movie, and the owner, Andy Summers. Andy Summers from the Police.
Right.
His brother, I forgot the guy's name, is I think one of the owners of IRS Records.
Right.
And they had started a metal division of IRS Records.
Yeah,
we were one of 4 bands. Molly, Nuclear Assault, us, and one other band. I can't think of the name of the band. So basically, he wanted one of his bands in the movie.
Yeah, but weren't you the only East Coast band?
Mm-hmm.
In the movie,
Penelope Spheris she didn't care for that. she was kind of, I found out later that she was kind of bitching about it, that we were not like in an LA band, or why are we even here? And I'm like, you know.
I know. I mean,
like,
what
an ass, you know. She said that to somebody, like, because somebody like ran into her a few years back and, you know, mentioned us, and she's like, oh, I don't know why they weren't even an LA band. Yeah, well, good. That's
exactly good. I mean, my God, that was such
well, see, the thing was
cool scenes with you guys, and then the cars. I mean, that was awesome.
That was all her, like, and that's what I didn't understand, because each band had to submit a tape to her.
Right.
You know, so the other three bands, you know, submitted live videos. You know?
Yes.
We had Otto come over to the band house because with Seduce we had a band house.
Yeah, I know you
all
did.
lived in the house together,
Yeah,
you know?
I've been there.
So Otto came over and he just walked around the house with his video camera. He came in my bedroom and I'm like, hi Penelope, I'm Chuck. This is my room. This is my clock. This is my fish. This is my cat. You know, and Mark and David, this is my, you know, and she loved it. You know, so then she picked us up at the airport and we flew out there, you know. And when we were driving around, she took us to some swanky restaurant up in the Hollywood Hills, and me and David were freaking out on all the cars. Me and David were, you know, and Mark, we're Motorheads, you know, we dig hot rods.
Right.
You know, I've got a '63 Nova. David's got a Vet. You know, we've always had hot
rods.
Right.
I understand.
You know, and
well, you're into racing too, aren't you?
Oh yeah. I'm big into nostalgia drag racing and shit. You know, she thought it was cool that we were from Detroit and that we loved, you know, we'd see it. Dude, check out that Nova. You know,
yeah.
She loved that. So she took us to there was a bunch of car lots out by the airport, and they had, you know, a few of them had like classic cars.
Right,
you know?
right.
So she took us out to this lot. She was like, pick a car. There was like 60 classic cars. So I picked that Impala. David picked that black Impala, and Mark picked that.
Oh, you guys got to pick those.
Yeah, we got to pick the cars.
Wow.
You know, so then you know, we did the scene and stuff, and
How long did
it's just an afternoon, you know. It was one afternoon, you know. And she just drove around. We drove around Hollywood with her, and she did the interviews, you know. And then we.
She was actually doing that herself?
Oh yeah, she was in the back seat. Yeah.
Oh,
There was like a dude next to me with a camera, and she was in the back seat asking me the question. Or maybe she was in the seat. I don't remember, because I think he filmed it from the side.
Yeah, it's from the side.
So I think she was in the back seat, you know. He asked me the questions, and you know. And then we did like a, you know, like a club show.
That was the other thing I was going to ask you. Colleen, of course, which was the song on that.
Yeah.
You guys you didn't put that on the IRS release.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, it's on a single, I think.
That
was actually one of the very first songs I ever wrote for the band.
So you did write.
I wrote the whole thing. Yeah.
Were you? Oh, you wrote the whole. You wrote the song.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, did you co-write any of the other stuff on that album?
Yeah. You're like on the second album, Been So Long. I wrote that one. I came up with the riff, you know, and Anytime or Place.
Right.
That riff, you know. And,
how was David about that as far as
David was cool.
being the drummer and you're going to show him some riffs?
Well, no, I would show him a riff and then he would take it.
Yeah, he would take it from there, yeah.
You know, I mean...
were you writing lyrics too, or did Mark?
Yeah, I wrote all the lyrics. Actually, the Colleen is about Shauna Grant. I watched this, like, it was like some documentary on porn star Shauna Grant.
Right.
The typical go to Hollywood, want to be a star, winds up in porn, shoots herself. You know.
Right.
That's the whole song.
The typical Hollywood story.
That was her stage thing.
So was Colleen pretty much picked because it wasn't something you guys had recorded or at that time?
Yeah,
or
I don't know. I have no idea, bro. You know, I was kind of oblivious. You know, but back then I was just like, hey, it was party. You know,
let's rock and roll. Exactly.
Sure, whatever. You know, I didn't really, you know, I was young. You know, I mean, I was still in my 20s, so I was just happy to be playing in a band and making some sort of, you know, living at it. You know, we did for 5 years. That's all we did was play. We never had any day jobs. You know?
You didn't have time. You were playing everywhere.
Yeah, we played all the time.
It's like David. I don't remember the exact quote he said in the movie. There's something like, "We're the biggest band out of Detroit." I think it was.
Right. Well, they said, "Who's the biggest band in Detroit?" It's us.
Which some people took offense to, but I think it was absolutely true. Because from the time, the only other band that I think was ever even close to your level was Halloween.
Yeah,
and there was such a, you know.
It's funny because people like, you know, there's like this rivalry or something, and you know, honestly, I never considered, you know, Halloween competition, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, they were different style.
Because to me, Halloween was more metal. They were great metal band.
Yes, yes.
You know, they were great at what they did.
Yes,
they were metal,
absolutely.
You know, I mean, they were straight up metal.
Right.
I looked at us like we were more hard rock.
Exactly, and like
we
I said, that
more Van Halen, Rainbow, and
yes,
rock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The chemistry between you two guys made that.
So I never
whole
really
sound.
looked at us as that like we were competition, maybe competition for crowd size.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was the biggest thing because anybody that knew metal or rock music knew you guys were totally different sides of the spectrum.
But Halloween, they had that great draw too. I mean, they're a great band. I loved Rick Craig. I thought Rick Craig was a great
phenomenal guitar player.
Billy
I grew
White,
up with
great
Billy. I
drummer.
grew up with
George,
Billy.
I was too,
He used to live right down the street.
Dude, I
here.
used to play in a band with Tom before Halloween. It was a band called Bitch. That was before Halloween. I played drums for them for maybe a couple of months, you know, and Rick and Tom and I forgot the other dude's name, but that was a lot of fun. We were doing all like Dokken and Judas Priest, that was times, man, because those guys had this together, you know. They were, you know, Rick had his stuff. Those guys, you know, they had their stuff together too, man. I mean, they were on top of their game, you know.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny because people, oh, Halloween, man. I'm like, dude, I never considered.
Well, Seduce wrote the song Halloween.
Right. You know? And I mean, I thought that was awesome.
It
they
was
wanted to play. I'm
awesome.
like, that's killer, man.
Yeah.
You know?
I thought it was kind of like you guys were handing him a tribute song, more or less. You know.
Yeah, maybe there was some animosity back then. You know, just because
I think it was the odd. I think there was a lot of it like you're either Team Seduce or Team Halloween.
Right.
As far as shows.
Right.
Because I dug both, and I dug a lot of other bands too, coming out of the '70s and all that. You know,
I
Mariner.
think Mickey played drums with them for a minute.
Yeah,
you know, I remember they all came to the Silverbird right after I joined Seduce. They all came to the Silverbird. They're all like mean mugging me while I'm playing. I was just like, you know, man, I don't buckle under pressure. You know.
were you guys happy with the IRS album as far as the release?
No, I hated it. I hated it.
As far as what, the production?
Yeah, I hated it. Our manager, you know, was the producer, which should have never been.
Right.
And he flew us to Reno, Nevada to record at some stuffy studio. Which took our whole budget. I had to play out a rental kit, you know, in this stuffy studio, you know, and with him time because, you know, he was co-managing Megadeth at the time, you know, or helping with Megadeth, doing something, I don't know. And he was sort of responsible for letting Gar Samuelson and Chris Poland go, you know.
Right.
So he had this attitude, you know, and one of the we were in the middle of recording a song, and you know he was in a pissy mood that day, and he said something. He said something about firing me, you know, and his exact words were, "Let's get this song recorded." And I said something to him. And he looked at me and said, "I'll have 50 guys in here to replace you in a heartbeat." You know, and the song was a song that I wrote. You know,
right.
So we recorded the song, and we're sitting in the control room, and he come over to me and stood in front of me and said, "What do you think?" You know, he's just being a smart ass. Dude, I up and out of my chair. I had him around the throat. I was gonna bust his face in. I mean, I had him against the wall.
Yeah.
Mark grabbed me. You know,
Oh,
and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that." You know, I was like, "You ever talk to me like that again?"
Right.
You know, and he apologized up and down over the block.
So what?
2 months later, they fired me.
What do you think was the biggest problem with that album?
I think the whole, you know, we weren't comfortable. You know, I mean, it was just.
I mean, as far as the release of it, the sound, because it's a very distinctive change between that one and the first record, which I know is really low budget.
Yeah, that was low budget.
Was it at School Kids or something?
No, we recorded that right over here. You know, Bill Cairo's drum house used to be.
Oh yeah.
There used to be a little studio right there.
Yeah.
That's where we recorded it at, right there on 5 Mile in Redford. You know?
Right. Yeah.
And, but it was we had to record late, you know, and to me it's like Seduce never got, you know, we never got to go into a studio. Like I wish we'd go into a studio now, you know, because we're all still playing. You know?
Right.
I don't really play drums that much anymore, but I know I can. I work out all the time, so I know I'm in shape.
Right.
I still can I can sit down and lay it down if I have to. You know?
Right.
I'm more into playing guitar. You know, I was actually 2 years ago I was touring with Negative Approach. I was playing drums with them, and I got to do some great tours. Man, I went to Europe with them. Did a Sick of It All tour. Did for a month. We went out with Jello Biafra for 3 weeks. We went to Europe for a month. You know, I did some amazing shows with those guys, like going to Europe.
Right.
You know, dude, we played in the French Alps in Switzerland. And just all these trips. We played Hellfest was the very first show. 40,000 people. I mean, it was,
oh my God.
you know, I mean, it was insane. So I know I can, you know.
Well, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that it still pull off. Speaking of which, the last time I saw you, Token, you guys had done some new material.
Yeah.
And there was talk in the works, or rumors or whatever, about something being released this year. I know you guys are kind of disconnected as far as you and David being here and Mark being in Tennessee.
Yeah, so,
is there anything more with that, or is that still no?
Really. You know, it's kind of, I don't really push it anymore. You know, I just kind of like, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. You know, I mean, I've done my due diligence and trying to, you know, move things forward, and you know, it's just, you know, it is what it is.
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of fans and people I know that are big time with you guys, don't miss a show and all that. And the biggest thing is just like, do you guys not realize that you are still on the, big?
Yeah, I realize it all the time. I
Well, I
don't think we're big, but I think we've got a good thing going. You know?
I mean, every time you play the Token or whatever, I know it's usually between the Token and Harpo's. I prefer the Token.
I think the one thing that kind of hurt Seduce is we never really branched out. We never really, you know, we should have toured more, in my own opinion, you know.
We had toured the East Coast.
Yeah, but I think we should have did it more, you know. I think that, you know, I sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I would have stayed in the band and we'd have toured more. But at the same time, you know, metal was starting to go out.
Yes.
I mean, like I said, when I moved to L.A., man, I remember, dude, I used to go to A&M. I used to go to all of them, every single record company, almost every day, dropping off tapes, picking stuff up, taking it back to propaganda. That's all I did, you know. And I remember being in A&M, you know, studio or the office one day, and here's Poison, and here's Warrant, and here's these big, you know, the album, you know.
Pastor, Pussycat, all
that. Dude,
that.
I walked in there one day, and here's Nirvana. It was Nevermind. And it wasn't even out yet.
Right.
You know, and I said to the reception, I go, oh, Nirvana. And she goes, you know who Nirvana is? I go, yeah, I love Nirvana. You know, because I already had Bleach. I already seen Nirvana 3 times. I partied with
Cobain?
Yeah, at the Blind Pig. You know, up in the dressing room. Me and him, Chad and John Brandon, standing around smoking joints with Ron Sikowski, you know. I mean, Kurt was cool.
You lived a life, Chuck. You really have.
I got a signed CD. I'd seen they played the Blind Pig one time, and I walked up to Kurt. I'm like, dude, would you sign the CD? I was working at Rock of Ages, and I got Bleach. And he looked at it. He goes, "What is that?" Because it wasn't out. He didn't even know it was out on CD yet.
Oh, really?
And I go, it's a compact disc. He goes, I didn't really. I thought it was only vinyl. I go, no, they just put it out on disc, and he signed it for me. He put, hi, my name is Kurt, with an arrow point to it. And then he signed my Bleach CD, or I had a single too. He signed that for me, and then the funny thing was, I was in L.A. and I'm sitting in this hotel. I used to mess around with this girl. She'd get a hotel room every once in a while and call me up. She got a room one day in this Studio City, and she called me up, hey, come on over and let's mess around. You know, okay, sure. And I'm sitting in the lobby waiting for her, and I look over, and Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic are sitting there. You know, and I look at him, and Kurt looks at me and goes, man, you look familiar. And I go, yeah, dude, I was in Ann Arbor, dude. We played up the dress. He goes, oh, yeah. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? He's like, we're recording an album. They were recording Nevermind. Right down the street from my house. I lived in North Hollywood. They were recording in the studio right down the street from my house. And, what was I talking about? I forgot now. I live in L.A., I guess. Whatever, you know. But yeah, you know, I mean, that chick gave me a promo copy of Nevermind on cassette, and she gave me a copy of Soundgarden, one of the Soundgarden records that was coming out too, on a promo on cassette. Hadn't even come out yet, you know. So I kind of knew that, you know, that metal was kind of, so if I'd have stayed in Seduce, who knows? It may have nosedived, you know. So I was kind of right in the
right spot. Maybe a national scene. Yeah, I can see that.
You know, so I mean, who's to say what the future held? But that's when I started. I was way more, like I said, I was way more into playing guitar. And once I seen Nirvana, and I was like, I can do that, you know, because I was always seeing these like metal guitar players. I'm not a metal player. You know, I don't play like that. It's funny because I remember sitting in the.
Well, that was the whole change from metal to grunge. Was these guys weren't those kind of players?
Well, you know when when we went to L.A. to do the movie, I remember sitting in the rental car at the rental car place, waiting to go get a car, and Guns N' Roses came on the radio. It was Mr. Brownstone. I've never heard Guns N' Roses before.
Right.
And I was like, listen to that guitar player. That's my kind of guitar playing right there. I love bluesy players. I'm way more into, Frank Marino.
Very raw.
Rory Gallagher.
Yes.
And, I love that. That's my style of guitar playing.
Yes.
Very pentatonic, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And I was like, and then I seen Nirvana, and I was like, I can do that. I never thought I could be in a metal band playing guitar. Wasn't that good. But I'd seen Nirvana, I was like, now I could do that. Because this dude, he's approaching the guitar completely different. He's not trying to master it. He's just using it as a tool to
project what he was feeling.
His feelings.
Yes.
So that's when I put Speedball together, and my roommate Michael was tapped for I forgot what band he was out on tour with. Love Hate.
Okay.
When I was Love Hate.
Yeah.
And then Penny was out, had left for a couple of weeks with L.A. Guns. So I had to house myself, So I set my drums up in the living room, and I recorded 10 songs with a 4-track. And then I recorded the bass and drums, or bass guitar and vocals,
Yeah.
So then when those
you were singing too?
Yeah, I did the whole thing. I did a whole cassette by myself.
Wow.
So when those guys came back, I played it for them. I was like, yeah, this is a band that wants me to audition for them. What do you guys think of this? And they all loved it. They were like, oh, this band's cool, man. Who is this? I'm like, oh, it's just some friends of mine. And I played it for Ricky Rackman. And Ricky was like, dude, that's cool. What band is that? I'm like, oh, it's just this band, blah, blah, blah. And then finally I would go, well, it's actually me. That's all me. And they're like, what? So then I put, just for giggles, I put, I got Mike Alonso, Bill Cozy, and Jeff King. Jeff was Mike's roommate, and I've known Mike for years.
Right.
From Detroit. And me and Bill have been buddies for years, and, played the Meanies and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So we would get together at MIT. Mike had a buddy there that was a security guard at MIT, the Musicians Institute, which is right on the corner of Hollywood and Highland.
Right.
So we would go there at like after hours when school was over, and they had all these classrooms with little PV amps and drum sets. So we'd go in there, and that's how we put Speedball together. And actually, Ricky Rackman gave us our very first show.
That was put together out there in L.A.
Oh yeah, we formed Speedball in L.A. Yeah, Ricky Rackman gave us our first show. Our very first show was at the Cat House.
Wow, how'd it go?
Oh, it's great. And I was still living with Tracy. Tracy Guns gave me a whole Randall stack. He gave me a bunch of guitars. He said, Tracy, salt of the earth. I love Tracy. I couldn't. Honestly, he probably, if it wouldn't have been for him, Speedball may not have got off the ground. But the funny thing was, is he came and seen us one night, and he loved it. He's just like, he'd come up to me after the show, and I was still playing drums and Killing Machine.
Right.
And we had an album out on Polygram and blah blah blah. But Tracy always had this one foot out the door, like he was still hoping L.A. Guns was gonna. He was trying to. First, he wanted this he wanted us to be like Pantera meets like punk rock.
Right.
But the little aspects of L.A. Guns started to kind of drift in.
Slip in there.
There's a couple of videos on YouTube. YouTube Killing Machine Live. There's a couple of videos. Drums. But anyways, Tracy came to see us at the Lingerie one night, and he comes up to me and goes, man, God, you guys are great, man. I love you. I love it. This is great. And I said to him, I go, yeah, man, this is the first band I ever wanted to paint the name of the band on the back of my jacket.
Wow.
And he like that was like he didn't, that did not, he wanted me to be like 100% into his band, and I was just playing drums, man.
Yeah, you got to do your own thing.
And I mean, I had a riot playing with Killing Machine. I mean, we had some great shows, toured, and put a record out, and we did some nice tours, and I had a lot of fun. But my heart was more into playing guitar,
Right.
So that's I put Speedball together, and we started playing around Hollywood, and everything was cool. And Seduce, David actually asked me to come back and play some shows with him,
Right.
And I said, well, I've got this thing together, I'm like, I've got this band together, Speedball,
right,
that I'm digging, and I was like, I said, I'll come back there, but I'm going to play guitar. Let's get a drummer, and let's start a whole new band. You and Mark and me playing guitar, singing, And those guys were like, yeah, sure, come on,
Okay.
And then I came back, and
No, they just wanted to get on the kid, man.
They
It's your
quickly
kid.
squashed that, you know. So that's when I,
That would have been really cool.
yeah, you know, I was like, well, you know, they quickly squashed that. Oh, you don't want to do that. You know, so I played with them for a couple of weeks, made some money. You know, I went back and actually bought a '64 Falcon. I was like, well, I love this new Falcon. But anyway, that's when I said, screw it. I put Speedball together.
Right.
And Speedball, we started playing around Hollywood and stuff. And actually, David, he came out to L.A. He was going to stay. He was going to live out there for a while. And me and him drove back to Detroit for something. I forgot what we drove back there for. But we left L.A. one morning and drove all the way. We drove straight through. Like, we did not stop. And we had some, you know, some help. You know,
Yeah, I guess.
And we drove straight through, and we got home. And
Who did most of the driving?
both of us. You know,
You guys-
I had this little 1980 Ford Fiesta.
Oh, you were driving the
Yeah.
Fiesta all the way back from
Dude, I paid
California?
$100 for this car.
And you made it?
Yeah, and I paid $100 for the car and put about $500 in the brakes and stuff. Drove it all the way to L.A. Worked as a runner, driving the thing all over Hollywood every day. You know, then drove it back here.
Oh my God.
And then funny, you know, and me and David came back and picked up. I forgot when we came back. I don't even remember what it was. But the day we got back, I went to my girlfriend's house and fell asleep for a day. I slept for like a day. I woke up in her bed and I'm looking at the TV's on. L.A. in flames. The Rodney King riots happened the day that me and David left. That morning,
my God.
The riots happened that day.
Jeez.
I was like, man. So anyways, we came back to, we drove my Fiesta back. And this was a funny story. We were right outside of St. Louis, and I'm driving along, and I hear, the drive shaft fell off.
Oh no. That's it.
So we're sitting there on the side of the road, man, no cell phone, no.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you know, there was no cell phone. Cars whizzing by, you know, so I'm looking under the car, and there's a two-piece drive shaft that had these two bolts and was flanged. One of the bolts had rattled out, and the flange busted, but the bolt was still in there, you know. So I pulled that bolt out, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, David, I think we're dead in the water, man. I don't know, man. I think we're toast, you know. We're both sitting on the side of the freeway, like, what do we do now? And so I'm like, I look at the motor mount, and the bolts were the same as the ones that were holding that, the one that I was missing.
Yeah.
There's 3 motor mount bolts.
Right,
I took one out, you know. And I'm like, man, if we had a washer, you know, if I had a big washer, it's like, I got one on my guitar strap. So David grabs his washer off his guitar strap. I slapped that sucker on there, put that drive shaft back up, boom, we blasted out, made it all the way back to LA.
That's ingenuity and stuff. And you were lucky you thought of all that.
Yeah, man. It was,
you might still be on the side of the road.
Yeah, we probably be skeletons by now.
Let me ask you this. I know this is going to be tough because in my mind, you're great. You're great at both. If you had to choose one or the other, drums or guitar, at this stage of your life,
Guitar.
Guitar?
Yeah.
You have more fun with it?
Yeah, I think it's more expressive, you know. But I do love playing drums. I can be very expressive on drums, but for me, I'm a songwriter.
Right.
You know, so it's hard to express yourself songwriting on drums.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
So I'm way more into guitar. Since COVID hit too, I've just really delved into, you know, learning more and really getting my.
Well, how did your latest project, Highborn, come about?
That was basically I just got together with Dan G. Dan G was in Chapstick, and one other band with it. Jason, my buddy Jason, was in Fights to Cadavers, and he's in this band Temple of Void. We just got together and just started jams. I same thing. I wrote a bunch of songs. You know, I gave those guys tapes. You know, so and actually none of the original songs I wrote were even playing anymore. Well, maybe a couple of them, but the band just we kind of stumbled around when we first put it together. You know, we kind of tried to find our voice. You know,
right, of course.
Well, we kind of wanted to be stoner. You know, we kind of wanted, but I leaned a little bit more Black Rebel Motorcycle Club.
Right.
Failure meets like Caius, and it was just this, you know. So we put a record together, and everything was, you know, kind of going good. But see, Dan's married. He's got his wife had 2 daughters.
Yeah, it's harder when you're older.
You know, and so COVID hit, so we just kind of disbanded. You know, I mean, we just kind of went our separate ways. Well, Dan's kids are 3-4 years older now. you know, and about a year ago, I was just like, man, I miss those dudes. You know, I was like, I gave them a call. I was like, man, if you guys ever want to get together, they're like, well, we've been waiting for you to go on. So we put the band back together, and it's going great now. I mean, because I'm way more into, I'm writing a bit more 70s. You know, and like I'm way more. I don't really want to be. I don't want to be lumped in. I'd rather want to just be my own thing. Period.
Right.
You know,
right.
I'm not trying to find anybody else. You know, I don't want to follow.
Isn't it tough? Have you found it tough over the years to really try and come up with something original? Because I mean, it's been so
well, you're
done.
never going to come up with something original.
You know,
original.
I mean, well, completely, because everybody has their influence.
It's kind of, to me, it's
but
like,
I mean, a new sound. I mean, so much of the stuff now is electronic. They auto-tune, which drives me mad. It drives me. You don't even know if these people can sing or not.
Well, it's like I say, man. I would have no idea who you're even talking about, unless I hear it like at Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. You know, I could. You know, I throw my headphones in and I'm listening to Free.
Right.
You know, it's Sensational Alex Harvey Band.
Right.
You know, Uriah Heep. Stuff. I'm still listening to that stuff.
Yeah, well, so am I, and so are all of us.
You know, I mean, that, you know, and Motorhead stuff. And that's another good thing about Speedball is we got to tour with Motorhead.
I was going to ask you about that. How was that? Because I know Lemmy was kind of obviously an idol of yours.
Oh,
How
yeah.
was that?
Yeah, I mean, that was just like, you know, we got signed. You know, we moved back here, and actually, you know, when we moved up from L.A. and moved back here, and got a deal with Energy Records. We put out two others, and we did some small tours. We did a lot of, you know, week here, week there, and then we went up into Canada and stuff like that. Then they asked us if we wanted to do a Motorhead tour, and we went, hell yeah. You know, so the first tour we did with them was with them and Belladonna, Joey Belladonna.
Right.
And the first couple of shows were rough, man, because we were added to the tour like at last minute.
Right, yeah.
So they didn't want us on the tour. You know, we had to earn our spot.
Who didn't want you on the tour?
Motorhead or Anthrax, or, you know, Joey Belladonna. They didn't.
Oh.
You know, not that they didn't want us there, but we were like the unknown. Like, who are these dudes? All of a sudden, you know. And the first couple of shows, like, were rough because, you know, Belladonna, you know, Motorhead would set up, and then Belladonna would set up. Like, we'd have to set up around them.
Around
you know,
them, yeah.
And you know, and we stayed away from Motorhead. You know, we didn't bug those guys. We stayed away from them. You know,
it had to be tough.
Yeah, I'm a huge Motorhead.
Yeah,
so, you know, and I noticed that the Belladonna dudes were all, you know, every time I turn around, they're at Belladonna following Motorhead around, you know. And we just stayed in our dressing room. We'd play our set and we'd go in our dressing room. Yeah. We'd stay away, you know. And
well, would you sneak out at least to watch the Motorhead?
Oh yeah.
We're gonna miss that.
Yeah, we'd sit there and, you know, we'd watch Motorhead and stuff, and you know, but we stayed away from them. We didn't want to bug them. You know,
sure.
We just, you know, I mean, we had Mike. I think it was one of the very first shows. Mike got hammered. Mike hammered.
Right.
Mike's actually in Flogging Molly, and I don't know if you know Flogging Molly.
Yes, I do, and the strange. Is David King still with me?
Yeah. David King
from Fastway.
Yeah.
What a trip.
Yeah. But anyways, Mike got wasted. Mike never drinks really, and Mike, it was the first show of the tour, so Mike said, "Oh, Jack Daniels," you know, and he got hammered, man. And he was standing we were on the side of the stage, or, you know, over by the monitor guy, and the monitor dude was this guy Ian the Eagle. He's been with Motorhead forever, like the No Sleep Till Hammersmith.
Yes,
right before we got the Road Crew. The dude that does the big screen.
Yes,
the Eagle. That's the dude, you know.
Oh,
and Mike's all hammered. He's like, man, that's the Eagle, man. That's the Eagle. And then you know, Lemmy's up on stage, and Lemmy's like, you know, the greatest drummer in the world, Mickey D. You know, and Mike's like, and like the tour manager looks over at me. This is the very first show. He's like, get him out of here, you know. So I get Mike out of there. So anyways, like the next show, it was a snowstorm. We were supposed to play in New York. It got canceled because it was a huge snowstorm. So we went to D.C. and we walked into this club in D.C. and Mike went right over to town. The tour manager, he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. And Tom was like, every band gets one screw up.
Right.
That was yours. Don't ever do it again. You know. So anyway, we played that show. Then the next show we played was Chicago. Played the big theater in Chicago. And I remember we were playing, and I looked over, and Lemmy was standing there on the side of the stage, with his arms crossed, watching us play. And I was like, wow.
Cool.
That's Lemmy. You know, Tommy's huge. I mean, I seen Motorhead at the Sonic Temple
Yes,
with Fast Eddie and
yes,
Filthy on
yes.
the Blizzard of Oz tour.
Right.
You know, I seen him with
Heyday.
at the main act with,
Right.
with what's his name, Robo. You know, I mean, I've seen every lineup. We played with him at Grand Circuit. But anyways, you know, after the set, we're all in this little tiny dressing room at the Vic Theater, you know, and I feel this tap on the back of my shoulder. You know, I'm standing in the doorway, you know.
Right.
I got my back to the door, you know, and I feel this tap on my shoulder. And I turn around, and Lemmy's standing there with his hand out, and there's like this light behind him, so it's like illuminating him, like this, like Jesus. I'm like, oh, he's like, he's got his hand out, and I'm like, he's like standing there for a second. I reach over and shook his hand. He goes, how you doing, mate? I'm Lem. He's like, you know, he's like, I gotta keep my eye on the competition. And I was like, you know, and he's like, come over in the dressing room and have a drink with us, you know.
Yeah.
Dude, we were in.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, I didn't realize, I still didn't even realize it, but Lemmy liked us because we were rock and we were from Detroit.
Really?
We were in the book, yeah, because Lemmy loved Detroit. You know, I mean, he loved the MC5. He loved
yeah,
You know, he was fired in Detroit from Parkland, you know, so he had big, you know, memories of Detroit, and we got along and it was great, man. I mean, like I sat in with him twice.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we were playing we were on tour with him.
That must have been kind of intense, man. Here you are playing with them.
Yeah, I'm sitting backstage, and Phil comes over to me, Phil Campbell. He's like, Chuck, you want to jam with us tonight? And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, you want to sit in and let's play a song? And I said, yeah, man. Because Phil would jam all the time.
Right.
Phil loved my guitar playing. You know?
Right.
And I didn't get it. I was like, man, he's like, dude, you got the chops, man. You know. And anyways, he says, yeah, what do you know? I said, I know Chase is better to catch. You know, he said, well, so when you hear the song, you know, when you announce it, come on up. You know, so sure as Lemmy's like, we're gonna bring our buddy Chuck up. You know, and he had a guitar for me and stuff. But I was just standing on the stage next to Lemmy.
Yes,
you know,
of course.
And then we started the song, and I couldn't hear because it was so loud.
Right.
You know, and you know, but I knew all the Fast Eddie licks. You know?
Right.
So we played Chase the Better to Catch, and I knew all the Fast Eddie chops because Phil didn't play it. Phil didn't play his chops. You know? Right. So I played all the Fast Eddie licks. You know.
Yeah.
So at the end of the song, Lemmy gives me the sacred pinky shit.
Yes.
And then he says, Chuck knows the song better than we do. You know. It was hilarious, man. I had some really great times with those guys. Then we got to go to, we went to Europe with them, and Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
And Ronnie James Dio was the coolest dude.
Yeah, I've met him. He was so humble.
Yeah, dude. I threw my back out on the plane over.
Yeah.
You know, I picked up my guitars wrong, and I screwed my back up really bad. I thought we were going to cancel the tour, you know, because I could barely walk, you know.
Right.
So I come, very first show, I come hopping into this, we played the sports hall in Hamburg, Germany, you know.
Right.
And I come walking in the back door, and I was in so much pain, I could barely walk. And I walk in, and I look over, and Ronnie James Dio standing there. I'm like, that's Ronnie James Dio. You know, he looked like a wax figure, you know. Like, holy God, you know. And he walks right over to me, he goes, yeah, you must be Chuck. I'm like, yeah. He goes, hi, I'm Ronnie.
Like you would know that.
I'm like, yeah, you know. And he goes, yeah, Jeff, your bass player. And Jeff was standing there. He goes, I was telling me you screwed your back up. Come on with me. His tap was a masseuse.
Oh, wow.
And I cracked my back, you know. And then he gave me, Ronnie gave me his lumbar support belt, you know. And then Lemmy gave me a bunch of, I don't know what they were.
Right.
Some kind of
yeah,
pills,
I get that.
You know, that turned my face red.
Oh,
I don't know what
geez.
the hell he gave me, you know. But it, you know, it cured it.
Did it cure it or just kind of get you through?
I played every one of the shows I played with that lumbar support belt on, you know. But, you know, it's the adrenaline once you get on stage.
Of course,
you know,
yeah.
You know, playing in Germany with Motorhead.
Yeah.
We were going over really good. You know, Lemmy was like, you know, you guys are going over great. You know, most bands get spit at.
Yeah, being over there.
You know, and every time I'd see Ronnie backstage, you know, also back, you know, I'll take care of it, man. You know,
now, I mean, you're doing the shows with Motorhead. What connection was Ronnie?
He was on tour too.
He was on tour with you?
Yeah, Speedball, Dio, Motorhead.
Wow.
Yeah, they did.
What a lineup.
Yeah, it was fun, man. It was
Oh my God. How was it as far as living over there? I mean,
well, I never lived over there, but you know, being
well, you
over
were
there,
touring over there. You were over there
we
for
were
a period
always
of
in
time.
a bus. You know, I mean, we were in a bus the whole time. You know, I mean, we only stayed in hotels 4 times. You know,
That's what I'm saying. Was
like when I went over
was
there,
that kind of rough?
Oh yeah,
tiring big time.
Well, I mean, that wasn't so bad because we had basically, we had sort of a crew, you know, sort of,
yeah.
you know, Motorhead's crew. Like when I went to Europe with Negative Approach, now that was a job. those dudes didn't have no crew, you know, and it was total punk rock tour. I mean,
Right.
it's throw and go, you know.
Right.
And we played 30 shows in 30 days.
Oh my God.
You know, I mean, you know, you're talking, you know, the 3 shows in France, 3 shows in Spain, 2 shows in England, you know.
All
Czech
that traveling
Republic.
all over.
Yeah, we were constantly, you know, and you're in a, you know, we stayed in the hostel some of the time, you know.
Right.
So you found that's soft, man. That is like that. That's what separates the men from the boys to where
Oh,
like that.
heck yeah, it did.
But the shows were incredible. I mean, I played some just amazing shows over there because hardcore and punk rock and that shit is still,
All right.
kids just, like, they live it, breathe it. You know, I mean, like, we played, I don't know how many, played a festival in Belgium, played a festival in Switzerland, played a festival in Sweden, played a festival in Finland. I mean, it was like festivals everywhere, and these festivals were huge, and they treated you great. You know?
Right.
And
My
like,
God.
I had some really good times with those dudes, man. And they, you know, I gotta say, man, those guys class act. You know, they
You did.
treated me good, and that was good times. I wish I could still play with them, but you know, looking forward.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you that when you talk about all these mini tours and this. How did you?
Well, I
get
lucked out. I lucked out with those guys because in 2013, you know, Ford was real slow. You know, the plant
Right.
I was working at was real
Yeah.
slow, so I could time off whenever I wanted it. You know?
Oh, okay.
So
I was going to say.
and so I did. I mean, they asked me to do like a 3-week tour with them and
Right.
off. Span off. So I did that tour, then I came back, they were like, hey, you want to go to Europe? I was like, yeah. So I went to Europe for a month with them, did that, you know, came back, then we did another tour right after that with Jello for 3 weeks, and then did another tour, we did like 10 days West Coast, just a headline tour.
Yeah.
Played like just killer clubs, and then we did a whole month with Cycladol, and that was pretty much the whole East Coast, all over
Right.
Texas, Florida, you know, did some great, and those guys are super cool.
Yeah.
You know, I just connected with Armand, the drummer, on Instagram, and yeah, I had a great time with those guys. Jello Biafra was, hey, that was too. It's funny because I did my own solo CD. I can't, you know, the Chuck Burns. I did everything on it. Play guitar.
Really?
I should have brought you one.
Yeah.
you
Is that recent? Is it on?
It's on Bandcamp. You just go
Bandcamp. Yeah, I'm
Chuck
familiar
Burns.
with Bandcamp.
And,
Yeah.
and it's on YouTube too. But it's funny because I gave the bass player in Jello's band a copy of my record. Like, hey, check this out, man. And,
Yeah.
you know, you get it, you know, Jello's. There's 10 songs.
Right.
Whatever, you know. So the next day he comes walking in, he goes, man, we listen to your CD in the band. We love it.
Yeah.
We love it. And Jello comes walking in. Jello Biafra's like, because I love your CD, man. I love it. It's great. Because you did all that yourself. I'm like, yeah. He's like, so it, like, wherever we played, anybody that would come into the dressing room, Jello would be talking to him. Out of nowhere, Jello would be like, oh yeah, and that's Chuck. He did his own CD. You should listen to it because it's really
He did
good.
everything. Yeah. He did the whole thing, production, every instrument. Yeah. I know you play guitar. And she said she did the bass line. Do you play any keys at all?
No.
You don't. It doesn't interest you as far as
Yeah, I mean,
putting
so-
that in
it's
the
so-
background. No,
Yeah.
doesn't lend itself at all to that.
I'm not big. I mean, I love keyboard. I'm huge Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Man.
Right,
I mean,
you
I
were
love-
saying you're right, Heath, obviously.
you know,
but it just doesn't lend itself to the stuff
I just
you
never
do.
really dicked around with it. You know, I'm
Right.
sure if I kind of messed with it. You know,
Right.
But
Well, I didn't mean that as much as just meant like effects,
no,
background effects.
Yeah, not really.
No.
Yeah,
That would be-
I like to keep, you know, especially with the Highborn, I'd like to keep it raw, you know, because it's 3-piece. I'm leaning a little bit more James Gang.
Right,
you know,
right.
You know, James, you know, that kind of, you know.
So what's the plans with that? Is there anything upcoming that you guys are going to do?
Yeah,
as far
not
as
really.
that?
You know, I mean, I'm going to be 62 this year. You know, so
I know, dude. I'm going to be 61 this month.
Yeah.
I know all about
Yeah,
it.
so I'm just stoked just to still be playing.
Well, of course.
I mean, I've kind of reached that point in life where I just don't care anymore. You know, it's like
Right.
I'm past of trying to please a certain crowd.
Of course.
Trying to get a record deal.
Oh.
Nobody gonna get a record deal. You know?
Yeah.
It's even record deals anymore.
Exactly. How they're even record companies
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
Everything's
so-
iTunes.
Once you take that out of the equation, it's fun again. You know?
Right.
I mean, I get together with Dan and Jason. We're going to rehearse tomorrow morning. We rehearse every Sunday, like 10:30 in the morning. So, yeah, I love it.
Did you ever, were you ever over at the Loft at all?
Yeah. I played in a band called Knife, and we rehearsed at that Loft place. That's too seedy for me now. But, yeah, you talking about that place over there?
Yeah, 7 Mile, Grand.
Yeah, it's a little too seedy for me. Yeah, no, I didn't want to leave any gear there.
Yeah, I can understand.
But then again, you know, I lived in North Hollywood, so, you know.
I was going to say, what made you finally come back from
the
LA.
riots.
The what?
The riots.
Oh, that was it? Was it?
Yeah, the riots. Once the Rodney King riots hit, the whole LA scene just died. I mean, it's like there was no bands playing, there was nobody going out.
Right.
It just was. It was like LA was kind of like in lockdown.
Right.
And at the same time, like Sponge and somebody else got signed out of Detroit.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this band's getting signed out of Detroit. We can go live there cheap.
Yeah.
And we've already got connections here. We've got connections in New York and LA. Let's go to these. I was like, I'm going home.
Right.
Because LA was just kind of screwed up. And the scene kind of died. And, either bands got signed or, like that Tool or Rage Against the Machine, those bands came out of the scene.
The reason I was asking that, I can understand you coming back from LA because of the riots and all that, but you mentioned, you're talking about the whole grunge scene and all that. Why didn't you head up to Seattle?
Man, I was just, I played in Seattle a couple times with Tracy Guns. And
Didn't get
just too, I liked LA. I really dug LA.
Well, I can see why you would.
In LA at the time was way more dirty, way more seedy. It was kind of like Royal Oak now in Hollywood, But then it was still kind of dirty and seedy, and, I dug that.
Right.
And I had a girlfriend, and I had that working at propaganda. I was working at a record store, Aaron's Records, right on Highland in Santa Monica,
Right.
And right in the heart of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I knew, working at propaganda, I knew LA like the back of my head.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
I mean, I delivered to everyone. Calabasas, you name it. I probably drove there.
Out of all, I'm not going to keep you much longer. This is going longer than you probably even wanted to. Last question, a little bit. As far as Seduce, again, I'm not going to ask you any more about when you guys are going to play, because I know it's always up in the air and stuff that may happen, may not, or whatever.
I never, cancel it out.
Right. Well, it did get canceled.
Yeah.
And
David had a death in his family.
Oh, okay. I figured it was either that or they thought it was bad timing. Because I mean, the weekend before Christmas.
No, it was right after we booked it, Dave.
Oh, okay. Well, that's totally understandable. Of the Seduce days, what do you think was, in your opinion, the peak of the band as far as popularity or on the edge of being maybe signed to a national?
I thought Seduce kind of peaked in like 85, 86. I thought that was our best when we were really firing on all cylinders. I think by the time we got signed, we were kind of burned out. I think there was a lot of dope involved.
Right. And it was too bad because those songs are really strong. They really are. The only thing I always thought about them and stuff, because I've known some hardcore bands and all that didn't really. The criticism always was from people I knew. Was it seemed a little like unseduced as far as the mix and sound. It didn't have that raw energy that you guys had, especially live. And speaking of live, I know live albums weren't a big thing or lost that. Did you guys ever think of doing a live album?
No, man. There's a couple of
there's bootlegs. There's tons of bootlegs.
Those broadcasts, those riff broadcasts.
Those
are killer, man. There's one from Tracks.
I know, I've got all those, but I'm talking about.
I told those guys we should release all that shit.
Yeah, well, I know, and you did that when you guys remastered the first CD and all that. But that's the whole case. I mean, you wouldn't have to do anything other than package it.
Seduce was the victim of not having like a dude that come in and go, you guys need to do this.
Management.
Yeah, good. Like a dude, like a guy that could come in and say, cut this part out, do that.
Yes.
It's funny because I remember when I was living with Tracy Guns, I was good friends with the bass player from Trouble and Ron, the bass player from Ron Holzer from Trouble. And he was telling me, I said, what was it like recording with Rick Rubin? He goes, oh man, Rick Rubin.
Legendary.
He goes, dude, we would be playing a song, because Trouble's songs used to be 10, 12 minutes long.
Yeah, I remember that.
He's like, dude, we go into the studio, we'd be playing a song, and Rick Rubin would come in and go, stop it! You're killing me! This sucks!
You're not Pink Floyd.
Yeah, God damn it! Stop it! But he was great at picking the part out of the song,
right,
and making a song out of it.
Yes.
And I think that's what we needed, was somebody to kind of come in like an overseer, and kind of get the vibe, and like when too much was recorded, man, there was a lot of turmoil already in the band. There was a lot of drugs, there was mismanagement. We had to go to me personally, I think we should have recorded that record here in Detroit.
Yes.
We're a Detroit band.
But
what
you
the
think
hell are we doing?
they would have wanted to gloss it over?
Right. Well, I mean, they were following. I was just kind of following those guys. And
Yeah, the
those guys
trend.
were kind of following this guy
Yeah.
who was telling what they wanted to hear.
Right.
It was really the product of mismanagement. And a lot of bands fall victim to that.
Well, they want to make it. They want to make
Yeah,
it.
and you got
take
this
a
dude
chance.
telling you what you think you want to hear. And, we really lost focus at that point. There was no focus in the band at that point.
That's just too bad because I think they're great songs. I just don't think the mix or the production was quite
even like the remix. Kind of came in. They did a good job. Mixing it, but
and you got Homicide on there because I know that's always been a fan
honestly,
favorite.
I think we could walk into a studio right now and do those songs way better and way raw. Without all the. And see, that was another thing. It was recorded in the '80s where everybody was getting into an overproduced, tons of reverb. Tons of delay and all this.
Too many mics on the drums.
And triggering this, triggering that. There's a couple of songs on there where I think it's been so long. Where you can hear like the triggers not, it's either too tight or too loose. And I'm like, I got a great drum set. Why do you trigger them?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like, why do you put, a ketchup on a filet mignon?
Right.
And I'm like, but hey, man,
You were pretty much at their mercy
I was
as far
at
as
their
that
mercy.
went.
It's like,
That is too bad because you guys with something like Ruben or anybody else like that. Oh my God.
Well, the cool thing is we're still playing. David's, me and David, we're like brothers.
Right.
I talk to David almost every week.
How is he doing?
He's doing great, and he's still playing. He's all about it. David helps me out with my guitar stuff, and Mark is still playing. It's just, Mark likes Nashville.
Right.
He's married. He's got his life down there. And,
right.
I got, hey man.
Well, we all get older, life changes and all
life
that.
changes,
The thing that was the funniest thing about Mark is and you guys so many times over the years, obviously, was when I first saw the new look and getting healthy, changes and stuff. The first thing I thought of was, is this guy trying to look like Lemmy? And I'm like going to Chuck and tell him, hey man, get this Lemmy look. He's got this whole Lemmy look. And at first, I didn't even think he was Mark. I mean, it's such a drastic change. I don't just mean that, but I mean, he lost the weight, that. Because when you get the Emerald Theater show, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, that was I didn't really think that was too good of a show, to be quite honest with you. David was still, David
was suffering a bit, wasn't he?
He had some issues going on, he had some demons he was still flirting with, So that show, I just,
I mean, out of all the shows you guys have done, and you had mentioned I didn't get out, and there was a Metallica thing in there and stuff because he was in there, and I'm like, Otto, I gotta give this back to this guy.
Yeah.
I can't keep that, right? Yeah. And he was always bragging, oh yeah, man. Is that always it? And they knew his connection with the guy. It goes, I've got Seduce stuff that would blow your mind. Stuff that you've never seen, this and that. I'm like, well, I was at a lot of shows. But he wouldn't give them, I said, well, what are you doing with them? Why don't you put them out on YouTube? The fire's still on. Oh, no, we can't do that. Because Chuck says that it can't do any of that stuff because the band has ideas like it was going to put out some greatest hits live thing. Was that ever in the works? Did you just talking to
Yeah, it might have been back then. I mean, the dude has a lot of brain cells some years ago.
No, this was recently, last 3 years and stuff. I thought he won't give it up and all that. Because
David, we have talked about, some kind of, it's like we get together and we talk about things like, we should do this, we get this plan going, and then it goes,
Do you guys just think there isn't enough interest out there?
To be honest with you, I don't know. I try my best to, I've done my best, I've done my, my due diligence in trying to resurrect it. It's like, I've got two other people, that have their lives, and they're doing their thing, and, so I just figure,
obviously, you guys don't need the money.
No. I'm saying we don't do it for the money. We do it.
No, I wouldn't think so, but I know you make good money when you do play.
Yeah, it's nice, but no, we don't got jobs. And
right.
It's nice, I just like to do it just because to me it's like, it's like the family reunion.
Yes.
It's like getting together with all our friends and having like a big party.
Yeah, exactly.
Entertainment, that's.
And people go wild. It just,
you
guys, the Seduce show at Token and stuff, word gets out, it's all over you.
Yeah.
You're all over. I mean, I know you probably have to know, but I mean, I wonder if Mark and David know how big they are and still are as far as fan clubs all over. These people, all these different sites, these different people.
Yeah, I really can't, say I can't really speak for those guys.
Right.
It's like me and David talk about it all the time, and it is.
I think it would be different if Mark wasn't in Tennessee.
Yeah, I think we'd be playing a lot more. Actually, yeah, I think we'd be doing a lot more. But if he chooses to live in Nashville,
Is he playing in Nashville?
No, not really.
No.
He's just living down there with his wife. Yeah, I think he plays every once in a while. He just sits in with bands and stuff like that. He's not playing with a band or anything, and but that's his choice,
Right, obviously.
And I just kind of look at it like, hey man, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
I ain't getting any younger, and I'm not gonna sit around and go, well, I'll just wait for the new show. Well, no.
Did you guys ever have any control over your merchandise though? Because
That's all I. We do all.
Boy, because and this will be the last thing I ask you from was the show you put out, or the last show, or one of the Token shows. You guys were promoting the reissue on vinyl, the first album.
Yeah,
you guys said, I'm there, this and that. You had everything but a T-shirt that amplified it. And I remember, and that's why I asked it. I remember getting a hold of you and saying, why not? Because I've got all the T-shirts and all the cool. Why not? And you're like, well, I don't know. We don't handle that part of it. And I had one made, and I remember I got your permission, and all you had said was, well, don't bootleg it. And I had never had any plans of it. I just thought that front cover was so cool on the first album.
Yeah, I think we did a shirt like that.
Maybe back in the heyday, but I'm just saying that really should have been brought back from the
honestly, when it comes to those shows, when it gets to showtime, I'm so like.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know how much control the band actually had over the merchandise.
Because then I got to go into commando mode, learn all the songs again, and get back into shape, and because when I play, I want to make sure that I'm nailing it. Man.
Well, you are.
I ain't gonna phone it in. It's like
right. No, it's
obvious. At my
obvious.
age, I'm not gonna phone it in.
And like I said, that's the other thing. The band, the last few times I've seen you, you can see the stuff I've got on the wall, the tribute to you guys. Always strong. Some of the shows are stronger than some of the stuff in the past.
I think we're playing better than we ever have.
Yeah.
Because we're all more seasoned now.
A lot more seasoned,
and we're way more into
healthy.
The vibe of it. There's a vibe to the
Yes.
I'm way more into the three of us interact more.
Right.
It's like I can say to David, where do you want the meter of this song to hit? Where you're playing it, where you like it. He's like say Love to Hate, or Stepping Stone.
Right.
I used to play that song too fast, but I never even realized it. David's like, one day he's like, man, if you slow that up a little bit, and give it more groove, I was like,
that wasn't your style. And I think when you guys took that song and did that was so cool. Because my band, when we heard you doing it, we got to do that. We got to do that. We got to try and do it as loud as them, and that kind of meter. Because it was so pounded. Because like I said before, we would never expect a band like you to cover something like that.
We used to cover Red Book, Marathon. I just got out my little red book.
Well, you did Blondie. You were doing Blondie Call Me, which is another one that kind of surprised me. But it was always really cool.
We like doing the odd covers. Rather than the mainstream,
the obvious stuff.
Living After Midnight and stuff like that.
Nobody wants to do
that. And put our own spin on it.
Yes, well, of course.
Because to me, it's like if you're going to cover a song, you either do it exact or you put your own spin on it.
You don't want to do it.
Yeah, if you're going to cover it, you're either going to cover it exact or you're going to put your own. This is how I would have done it. It's like that David Bowie album, Singles, where he did all his own favorite songs the way he would have recorded. I love that.
That is classic.
That's the way we kind of look at it.
Right, that's really cool. Yeah. Well, I'm going to end this, Chuck, and I want to really thank you, sir, for coming out, spending the time. It's been great talking to you. Hopefully, Seduce will do another show before I'm dead. I know a lot of friends that want to see you guys. Definitely will come out and support you, do whatever anywhere you go.
Right on. In the meantime, check out my solo band. I tell you, man.
I definitely will. Like I said, I didn't even know that existed and stuff. Because I love Speedball. This Highborn stuff you've done is really cool. And like I say, I can see that you've definitely evolved as a musician.
There's a couple other bands that played. If you're on YouTube one day, check out Scheme and No Goods.
Scheme and No No good?
Yeah, there's a drum band. I played drums with John Speck and Ron Sikowski in that band. That was one of my favorite bands to play drums in.
And how long ago was that?
A few years back.
Okay.
You know, because honestly, Seduce was never really my favorite band to play drums in because
Right.
those songs are pretty complicated. You know, it's funny because I've had dudes that replaced me come over to me and say like, man, I used to think that you were a good drummer, but I didn't really think you were a great drummer. He goes, until I had to play these songs, and I'm like, well, it's because I made it look easy.
Chuck, there was no drummer that they, when you left and all that came close. The whole lineup, I mean, no offense against David and Mark, but it wasn't Seduced.
And,
it
all
lost
those
a lot
kids
of
were
it.
Dave Arney, all
Yes.
those guys, they're good drummers.
Yeah.
Great drummers, but there was a chemistry with me and Mark.
Exactly, that's what I had said
And when
earlier.
you take one thing out and you think, you all just throw somebody else in.
Yes.
How many bands have done that? And,
Yes.
it's like you change the vibe,
That's
and they can
absolutely
play the
true.
parts, but there's a certain feel, there's a vibe there.
And that's why I said you guys
Right.
really had it, you really clicked, and you still do. Like I said, you still have that energy.
Yeah.
You still look like you love what you're doing and stuff.
Hopefully,
and the crowd's digging it. Trust me.
For whatever it's worth, David actually mentioned to me maybe doing a show in the summer. So
Keep our fingers crossed.
fingers and toes crossed. Yeah. Yeah.
If you do that, get somebody to do it.
Right.
Somebody to record
We'll
it.
get Otto.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah.
You get Otto or something if he's still into that.
Yeah.
Get somebody, man, because it's like this stuff is. I'm telling you, and I know you got to know it. Probably for people still want this stuff.
Oh, I'm sure they'll
but
be-
we're dying off, Chuck.
I'm
We're
sure.
getting older.
Well, I'm sure half the crowd will be having their phones up.
Yeah, well, as they always do,
Right on,
and
man.
stuff.
Right
Well,
on.
I'd rather bring my CanScan recorder and stuff, because you can get a real hot recording.
Yeah.
But anyway, again, Chuck, thank you so much for
Yep.
coming out, and that's it. This has been Jimmy Jive's Motor City Rock Talk, and my guest has been Chuck Burns, and keep rocking.